I wasn't supposed to be there that late. The shop was already half dark, the air thick with oil and rain from the afternoon storm. I was just finishing paperwork when the bay door creaked open and a woman's voice called out, "Is anyone still here?" That was the first time I saw her. She stood framed in the doorway, black coat, a streak of silver in her hair that caught the shop light, and eyes that didn't look around much. She didn't fidget, didn't smile, just waited, like she was used to being the one who had to stay calm when other people didn't. "I can take a look," I said, wiping my hands on a rag. "What's going on with the car?" She hesitated, and that pause told me more than her words ever could. "It's making a noise," she finally said. A metallic kind of scrape. It turned out she was right. The brake pad had come loose. Nothing serious, 10 minutes, tops. But when she said her daughter usually handled these things, I caught something in her tone, not annoyance, exactly. More like a small, private ache she didn't mean to let slip. Her daughter showed up halfway through. Younger, bold, the kind of confidence that fills up a room before she even says a word. She leaned over the hood next to me, pretending to look at the engine, and grinned. "Like what you see," she teased, too loud, too casual. Her mother's voice cut through the air, low, calm, unmistakably firm. "Ella." Just that. One word, and the whole room seemed to fall back into place. I muttered something about checking the alignment and tried not to look up, but I could feel her, the mother, watching me. Not in the way people stare when they're suspicious or curious. More like she was trying to understand something about me, or about why I looked uncomfortable. When I glanced up, she wasn't looking anymore. She was tracing a finger along the car's window, lost in thought. Rain tapped on the metal roof. The smell of engine grease mixed with her perfume, something quiet and clean, like cedar or soap. She thanked me before I even finished. "You didn't have to stay this late," she said, her voice softer now, like she'd used up her day's strength on everything else and was only left with honesty. "It's fine," I said. "Keeps me from thinking too much." That made her smile, not a real one, more like an instinct she hadn't practiced in a while. "Dangerous habit," she said. "Thinking too much." And then it happened. One of those tiny moments that shouldn't mean anything. She reached out to take her keys, and her hand brushed mine. Not by accident. Not on purpose either. Just there. Enough for me to notice the warmth of her skin against the cold metal keyring. "Thanks," she murmured. That should have been the end of it. She turned to leave, her coat pulling close around her shoulders, the rain swallowing her footsteps as she crossed the parking lot. But I kept watching, just long enough to see her pause under the streetlight, her face tilted up, eyes closed against the drizzle. For a second, she looked like someone trying to remember who she used to be. And that image, her alone in the rain, caught between exhaustion and grace, hasn't left me since. Even now, when I close up the shop and the lights hum out one by one, I can still see her hand reaching for the keys, can still feel that pause between us. Like a spark that never really burned. It just stayed, waiting. She came back 3 days later, said the car was making a different noise this time, though I could tell she didn't really believe it. It was an excuse, but a quiet one. I told her to pull up near the side bay. She parked carefully, slower than most people do, hands firm on the wheel, eyes straight ahead. When she stepped out, she smiled a little too politely. "You again," she said. "Guess I'm the lucky one." I answered, trying to sound casual. It came out softer than I meant. The truth was, I'd been thinking about her. Not in the way I probably should have, more like a memory I kept accidentally walking into. The sound of her voice, the way she'd stood under that streetlight, the way her silence felt heavier than most people's words. While I checked her car, she lingered nearby. Not close enough to watch, but not leaving either. She seemed suspended. Her hands were tucked in her coat pockets, shoulders slightly tense, eyes tracing the floor instead of the car. Every now and then, she'd clear her throat, like she was about to say something, then didn't. "You don't have to stay," I said finally. "I know." She hesitated. "It's just quiet at home." Something about the way she said that caught me off guard. Not sad, exactly, just tired, in a way that sounded familiar. Like someone who'd learned how to live inside her own silence. I nodded. Sometimes quiet's worse than noise. That earned me a look, quick, sharp, assessing. Then her eyes softened. You talk like you're older than you look. Bad habit, I said. Working here does that to people. She laughed, small, unguarded, the kind of laugh that slips out before you realize you've forgotten how. It wasn't loud or polished, just real. And I think that was the first moment I wanted to know more about her, the part beneath the practiced calm. Her daughter called mid-conversation. I didn't listen, but I could hear her tone shift, firm at first, then strained. When she hung up, she stood still for a second, phone still in hand, eyes unfocused. You okay? I asked. She blinked, as if remembering I was there. She's just figuring herself out, she said. I forget how messy that can be. Her hand trembled slightly when she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I don't think she noticed. I went back to tightening the bolts, but something in me stayed fixed on that small motion. The tremor, the silence that followed it, the way she tried to make everything seem fine. When I handed her the receipt, our fingers almost touched again, but this time she pulled away faster. Thank you, she said, steady voice, practiced composure. But I caught the faintest shift, a crack in the calm, like she'd let the guard slip for half a heartbeat. She turned to leave, then stopped halfway to the door. It's strange, she said quietly, without looking back. How people keep showing up in your week when you don't plan for it. I didn't know what to say, so I just watched her go. But as the door closed behind her, the air still felt charged, like the world had paused for a breath we hadn't finished taking. The rain started just after closing, the kind that doesn't pour, just lingers, whispering against the tin roof. She showed up again, this time without pretending there was something wrong with the car. I was nearby, she said. Thought I'd drop off some coffee. As thanks. She held out 2 paper cups, both steaming. I took one, still warm against my palms. You didn't have to, I said. I know. She smiled faintly. I wanted to. We stood under the flickering light near the workbench, the shop half in shadow. Outside, water pooled under the lamplight, collecting small reflections of everything. Our boots, the edge of the car, her hand tightening around her cup whenever the thunder rolled. Rough day? I asked. She exhaled, long and quiet. Something like that. She didn't elaborate, and I didn't press. We talked about nothing, weather, music, the smell of rain on hot pavement. Her voice had this rhythm to it, careful but low, like every word had to pass through a layer of thought before being spoken. I noticed how she brushed her thumb along the cup rim when she was thinking, how her laugh didn't quite reach her eyes tonight. When the lights flickered again, I went to check the circuit box. She followed, maybe out of instinct, maybe because she didn't want to be left alone in the dark. We ended up standing close, the narrow hallway forcing it. Her perfume mixed with the smell of metal and dust. I could feel her breathing, slow, steady, deliberate. You always work this late? She asked, her voice softer now. Sometimes, I said. Easier than going home. That seemed to hit somewhere deep. She looked at me. Really looked, this time, and for a second, everything between us went still. Then her phone buzzed. The name lit up the screen. Mark. She turned it face down without answering. Your husband? I asked before I could stop myself. She hesitated. X. The air thickened, though neither of us moved. The rain got louder, the kind of sound that made you feel alone and seen all at once. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be. She smiled, but it didn't stay. You remind me of. She stopped herself, shaking her head. Never mind. Remind you of what? She didn't answer. Just set her coffee down on the bench, fingers trembling slightly, and stepped closer to look at the fuse box. It was just an excuse to move, to do something with her hands. But when she leaned in, her shoulder brushed mine. Neither of us pulled away. For a moment, I thought she might. Say something. Or laugh. Or leave. Instead, she stayed. Close enough that I could see the faint freckles near her collarbone, the way her throat tightened when she swallowed. I should go, she whispered. Yeah, I said. But I didn't move either. We stood there like that, 2 people pretending to decide something neither of us really wanted to decide, until another flash of lightning broke the moment. She stepped back, collected her things, and walked toward the door. Before she left, she turned, eyes catching mine. You really should fix that light, she said softly. And then she was gone, leaving the door half open, the smell of rain and coffee still hanging in the air, and a touch on my sleeve that shouldn't have meant anything, but did. It was a Thursday night, too quiet for how heavy it felt. The shop lights were low, the hum of the generator the only sound between us. She'd come by to drop off a form, at least that's what she said, but neither of us mentioned the paper once it was in my hand. She stood near the car, arms folded, eyes fixed on the floor. I could tell she wanted to say something, but every word seemed to get stuck halfway. You've been here a lot lately, I said finally. I know. She nodded once, slow. I tell myself it's for the car. But it's not. Her laugh was small, tired. No, it's not. The air between us felt thin, like one more word might break it. I leaned against the counter, pretending to check a clipboard just to have something to hold. She stepped closer, not enough to touch, but close enough that I could see the faint shadow under her eyes. You're different, she said, voice quiet but certain. You listen. You look at people like you're really there. I don't know what that means, I said. Yes, you do. She looked up, and for a moment, I couldn't move. It's been a long time since someone looked at me that way. I swallowed, trying to find something safe to say. You make it sound like that's wrong. Maybe it is. There it was, the truth sitting bare between us, no noise to hide behind. She looked down again, and I saw her hand tighten around the strap of her bag. The leather creaked softly. I keep thinking about that night, she said. The rain, the light, the way you didn't say anything when you could have. I didn't know what to say. That's what I liked, she whispered. You didn't try to fix it. Silence stretched. Somewhere outside, a dog barked, the sound sharp and far away. She glanced toward the window, then back at me. This isn't normal, she said. I know. What are we doing? The question hit harder than it should have. It wasn't an accusation. It was something closer to pleading, the kind of question you ask when you already know the answer but need to hear it out loud. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. Every version of an answer felt dishonest. So instead, I said, I don't want to stop seeing you. Her eyes closed for a second, as if the words landed where she wasn't ready to feel them. When she looked at me again, her expression had changed, not softer, not harder, just real. I can't afford this, she said. Not the gossip, not the mistake, not the reminder that I'm still capable of wanting something I shouldn't. I stepped forward without thinking, but she didn't move back. We stood close enough to hear each other breathe, both waiting for one of us to do something we'd regret. But neither of us did. She finally whispered, almost to herself, You make me remember who I was before I learned to pretend. And then she left, no goodbye, no glance back, just the echo of her words, still trembling in the space she'd left behind. I hadn't seen her for almost 2 weeks. The silence stretched long enough that I convinced myself it had ended, that whatever existed between us had quietly dissolved into what it probably should have been all along. Nothing. Then one evening, just before closing, her car pulled up again. No warning. No message. Just her, sitting behind the wheel like she wasn't sure whether to come in or keep driving. When she finally stepped out, I noticed she looked different. Not worse, just quieter. There was a stillness about her that hadn't been there before. I didn't come for the car, she said. I guessed. She smiled at that. A small, grateful kind of smile. You're getting good at reading me. I've had practice. She walked around the shop slowly, fingertips grazing the counter, the tools, the wall calendar I hadn't flipped since last month. She wasn't looking at anything in particular, just stalling. Finally, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded photo. This is him, she said, handing it to me. A man, mid-30s, standing next to her, and a much younger version of her daughter. All three smiling, sunlight everywhere. There was no explanation needed. My husband, she said softly. He died 5 years ago. Car accident. Wrong lane, wrong moment. I didn't say anything. The hum of the lights filled the space where words should have gone. She sat on the stool near the workbench, turning the photo over in her hands. For a long time, I blamed myself. I told him not to drive that night. He was tired, and I knew it. But he went anyway. You know how people do that, they just go. Her voice wavered. The kind of tremor that comes when a story's been told too many times, but never really left the chest. I don't know why I'm telling you this, she said. Maybe because you don't look away when I talk. I leaned against the counter, the smell of metal thick in the air. You remind me of my mom, I said quietly. After my dad left, she'd sit in silence, like the house was too loud for her thoughts. Her eyes lifted. That's a strange kind of comfort. I didn't mean it like, no, she interrupted gently. It's honest. I like honest. We stood there, both holding pieces of our own ghosts. The rain had started again outside, light but steady. She looked at the photo one last time, then set it face down on the counter. You remind me of him sometimes, she said. Not in how you look. It's the way you wait before speaking. He used to do that too, like words could break something. I didn't know what to do with that. It felt like a confession disguised as a memory. She stepped closer, so close I could see the reflection of the overhead light in her eyes. You make it hard to keep pretending he's the only person I ever loved. Then she stepped back, almost startled by her own words, and reached for her coat. Before she left, she said softly, "Don't wait for me next time." But the moment the door closed, I knew I would, because that's what people do when they've already started waiting without meaning to. It was late again, always late, somehow. The kind of hour where the air feels too honest, when there's nothing left to hide behind. She didn't call ahead this time. She just appeared, coat still damp from the drizzle. I thought you weren't coming back, I said. I wasn't. She closed the door behind her, the sound soft but definite. But I didn't like how that felt. The honesty in that simple line made something shift inside me. I put down the wrench, wiped my hands, and leaned against the bench. Neither of us moved closer, but the distance between us had already changed. She walked slowly toward the car, the same one that had brought her here all those times before, and rested her hand on the hood. Funny, she said. I came here the first time because something was broken, and every time since, I thought I was fixing it. You did, I said. At least, the car. She smiled at that, but it faded almost as quickly as it came. You know that's not what I meant. Silence again. The hum of the fluorescent light filled the space like a fragile truce. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, waiting for something I couldn't name. I keep trying to convince myself this is temporary, she said. That I'll wake up one day and forget the sound of your voice, or how you hesitate before speaking. But it's not working. She turned toward me then, really turned, and I saw every line in her face, the softness that comes when someone stops pretending to be fine. I don't know what this is, I admitted. I just know it's real. Her eyes glistened, not from tears but from something deeper, a quiet surrender. I don't need it to be more than that, she said. Just real. For a long moment, we didn't speak. The world outside could have fallen away, and I don't think either of us would have noticed. She stepped closer, hesitated, then closed the final bit of space between us. Not a kiss, just her forehead resting lightly against my shoulder. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stayed there, feeling her warmth through the damp fabric of her coat. Her hand found mine on the workbench, fingers trembling at first, then steadying. We stood that way, our bodies still, the silence holding what words couldn't. I don't want to break this, I whispered. You won't, she said. We already did. Now we're just here. Outside, a truck passed, splashing through the puddles, its sound fading into the distance. Inside, everything settled, the air, the noise, the ache. When she finally pulled back, she didn't say goodbye. She just looked at me, something unspoken passing between us, the kind of truth you can only share once. Then she smiled, small, imperfect, human, and for the first time, that felt like enough. It's been months since that night, the one where everything finally got quiet between us. Not the kind of quiet that means nothing's left, but the kind that comes after the noise, when you've said all you can and just understand. She still brings the car by sometimes. Not as often now. No excuses, no pretense, just because. She'll drop off coffee, stay for a few minutes, ask how work's been. And every time, it feels lighter. Like we stopped trying to define what this was and just started living inside it. I think about that a lot. How love, if that's even the right word, isn't always a grand moment, or a confession. Sometimes it's just two people deciding to stay kind to each other, even when they shouldn't have to. She told me once, half smiling, that I'd reminded her what it felt like to be seen again. Not admired, not needed, just seen. I didn't know how to respond then. Maybe I still don't. But I carry that line with me, tucked somewhere between memory and guilt, like a keepsake you don't know whether to hide or display. I learned something from her, not about romance, but about timing. That sometimes, people don't enter your life to last. They show up to wake something in you, to make you look at yourself differently, to remind you that you can still feel. And her? I think she learned that it's okay to want again, even if the wanting scares you. There was never a final conversation, no dramatic ending, just a gradual fading into something softer, easier to hold. Now, when I see her drive away, I don't feel that ache anymore. Just a quiet respect for what we were and what we weren't. Sometimes, when I lock up the shop at night, I still catch the faint scent of her perfume in the air, that clean, cedar-like trace that makes the place feel less empty. I let it stay. I don't chase it or pretend it isn't there. Because maybe that's the point. Not every story ends with someone staying. Some just end with you learning how to stay with yourself a little better. I don't think we broke anything that night. I think we just stopped pretending we hadn't already changed each other. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what love really is. Not the forever part, but the way it lingers in you, quietly, like a song you never meant to memorize, but still find yourself humming on the way home. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?